Welcome back to the Sunday morning keynote session here at the Project Inspire Convention. I want to thank everybody for their cooperation, keeping to the timing. The last moment, just a few short days before the convention, Haravuri Deutsch called me that there was a family situation that unfortunately resulted in him having to board a plane to go to Eretz Yisrael, a family matter, and he regretted not being able to be here together with us. However, he is joining us live from Eretz Yisrael via Zoom, and without further ado, it's my great kavod to introduce from Eretz Yisrael, from Yerushalayim Yer HaKodesh, Harav Uri Deutsch.
Thank you so much for allowing me the chance to participate in the Project Inspire weekend and convention. Again, the Hashgacha hasn't allowed me to be with you in person, but it's my pleasure and honor to be able to participate in this way. And I hope in some way this more limited participation in the convention should nonetheless achieve Kvod Shamayim and should achieve a chizuk for all of you who have participated in this magnificent expression of Kiddush Hashem. The topic of our discussion today is Achdus, a nice idea or real obligation. It's difficult to imagine a more appropriate time to discuss this topic because standing on the threshold of the Yontiv of Purim, we know one of the most poignant and emotive psukim verses that there are in the Megillah describe how Haman, the paradigm of the anti-Semite, the paradigm of someone who seeks to undermine all the greatness of the Jewish nation, argues his case with Achashverosh, the then ruler of the world, and says the words, Yeshnoi am echod mefuzar u'mefoyrad bein ha'amim. He doesn't even give the Jewish people the credit and the respect of naming them, but defines them and labels them by a nation who is mefuzar u'mefoyrad, scattered and fragmented amongst the other nations. And as many of the commentators of the Megillah point out, that as Esther and Mordechai discussed the steps that would lead to the salvation of the Jewish nation, the expression that Esther used was Lech kenois es kol haYehudim, go and gather the Jewish people. And the commentators juxtapose these two expressions and contrast them and explain that what would be the antidote, the solution, and the source of salvation for the devastating critique and denigration of the Jewish people at the hands of Haman, by describing them as Yeshnai am echad mefuzar u'mefoyrad, there's a nation which is both scattered and fragmented. The antidote would be to gather the Jewish people in an expression of unity. And so the commentators underscore the theme of unity as part of the story and the narrative of Purim as one of the key components which led to the salvation of Klal Yisrael. And in the same way as in that era, the unity was key to the salvation of Klal Yisrael, we have in many places, in Chazal, in the rabbinic literature, Medrash, Gemara, where the unity of Klal Yisrael is a prerequisite and a condition and something necessary in order that the Jewish people should experience both blessing and the beneficence of God's providence daily, as well as what the Jewish nation lives for, which is for ultimate redemption. We have a Medrash Rabbah in Parshas Vayechi, as Yaakov gathered the tribes together shortly before his passing. And there the verse uses the words Heosfu, gather, as our patriarch Yaakov called all his children together. And the Medrash comments and says, Omar Lahain, Yaakov's deathbed instructions to his children was, Tihyon kulchem asifa achas, be considered one gathering. And he says, if that can be accomplished, that will be means by which hiskinu atzmechem legula. You will be preparing yourself towards ultimate redemption. So too we find in other places in the Medrash, where the emphasis of allowing all parts, all elements, all levels of the Jewish people to be able to be, in the words of the Medrash in Parshas Emor, in the book of Vayikra, where the Medrash says, Haboine bashomayim aliyosov, what allows God, what allows the revelation of the divinity in creation, what allows the elevation of the creation and the cosmos as a whole, kishehen asuyim aguda achas, when Klal Yisrael are formed into one bound entity, shenemar va'agudosai al eretz yisada, that when Klal Yisrael are bound together, when all the elements can be included, including what the Medrash calls b'nei Adam she'ein bohem loy Torah v'la ma'asim tovim, people whose observance and whose practice is not yet as complete as perhaps God has designated for them ultimately to reach. Nonetheless, yikshiru kulam aguda achas ve'imechaprim elu al elu. If they're able to be bound into one bind, into one aguda, then each one of them contributes strength to the other, which leads to the agudosei al eretz yisada, that the unity of the Rebbeinu Shalom, the unity of God, then gets revealed in our world. And this theme is repeated, as we said, in Medrash, in many places. And so we understand that the unity of Klal Yisrael is not just something which, as we describe in the Tefillah of Rosh Hashanah, and Yom Kippurim, is what Klal Yisrael in its perfect state will look like. Ve'osu kulam aguda echas, that we look towards an era in which Klal Yisrael will be an aguda echas, one entity with all its elements bound together. We understand that that's a prerequisite for ultimate redemption. And as we mentioned, we learn from the Megillah that that is the source, the vessel through which blessing and light comes to the Jewish nation, and through which salvation, peace comes to us. But the question is, provocatively, is that just a nice idea? What does unity really mean? I think it's helpful to begin with a remarkable piece of Maharal in his work Netzach Yisrael, where the Maharal, in the 25th chapter of his work Netzach Yisrael, fascinatingly engages with the question of someone outside the Jewish people, who he describes as someone from the Umos, someone from the nations of the world. And he engages with a very provocative and very challenging question that this person sort of threw at the Maharal. I'll praise the way the Maharal presents this question. The questioner, the non-Jew, said the following: you claim, as the Jewish people, that you represent the values of goodness, kindness, and so on in the world. And if that's true, he says, why then do we find that the Jewish people are so rife with disagreement? Why is it that so many people or groups within the Jewish nation see each other as somehow superior to the other? And he says, aren't you commanded with the mitzvah of va'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha? Aren't you commanded to love each other And if you'll retort and say, but that's only kamoicha if the person is somehow similar to me, so then haven't we allowed for the Jewish people to become fragmented, with each person labeling the other person as not being like me, and therefore the injuncture of ahavta l'orecha kamoicha doesn't apply? And the Maharal actually goes on to say, and it's unclear what his source for this statement is, but he says that that question is a question that has been asked in many earlier times, and the Jewish people has been challenged by this. And he says, ube'emes, and I'll read his original language because it's so powerful. He says, ube'emes dover zehu gnai neget ha'umois. This would almost seem to be something which is a stain on the Jewish people. Kasher tire b'chol ha'umois she'ein midazois nimtza beineihem. The degree of infighting, says the Maharal, that the Jewish people seem to be subject to doesn't have a parallel amongst the other nations of the world. How do we understand this? So first, the Maharal says that the Jewish people being fragmented to the degree that they are is part of the condition of exile. And he says that part of what causes us to be fragmented, to be apart, to be different in our thinking and our opinions, is part of what golus, what exile, what fragmentation means to the Jewish people. He says, when Am Yisrael are unified in a land around the Beis HaMikdash, with all the institutions that unify Klal Yisrael, like a Sanhedrin, like the highest courts, or the institution of Kahuna, and a king, and a Melech Yisrael, a Jewish king, where all of those will be, as the Rambam describes the Jewish king, as Leiv HaMelech, Leiv HaOm. The heart of the king becomes the unifying heart of the Jewish people. Then we've created a system and institutions and means by which the Jewish people rally around, central focal points, both physical and spiritual. But in the absence of those, he says, Gzeiras Hashem Yisbarach sheyu mechulakim. He says the Rebbeinu Shalom by definition has imposed on us in exile that we are challenged in terms of our unification. And he says, the Maharal, that in general, whenever we find the appearance of something negative in the structure of Klal Yisrael, we also have to understand that what its source is something which is a aspect of Klal Yisrael's greatness, which in some way has become corrupted or isn't being brought to fruition in the way that it was originally intended. And he says the following. He says, when Klal Yisrael challenge each other, it's because the natural drive, wish, and ambition of every Yid is to forge the most complete path towards fulfilling his divine mission. And the intensity of the debate and the intensity of the dismissal of the approach of others, the intensity of the factionalism with which Klal Yisrael can be beset, comes from every person striving to be able to define the most accurate, the most consecrated, the most complete way in which to approach the Rebbeinu Shalom. And therefore, as every person seeks his own most complete path, it then can sometimes be taken to the degree that establishing my own unique path in Avodas Hashem sometimes spills over in dismissing or being somewhat, in some respect, being contemptuous of the approach of someone else. But he told the non-Jew that the proof that the source of the factionalism with which Klal Yisrael is beset is because of the natural striving that Klal Yisrael has to reach and to be confident of their approach towards divine service can be evidenced by the fact that when Klal Yisrael is beset by a tzara, where they're beset by tragedy, or there's a need to extend chesed, to extend loving kindness from one to another, then the nation becomes unified. When Klal Yisrael is faced by tragedy, when they're faced by outside challenges, when they're faced with danger, then those are the points in which the Maharal says Klal Yisrael unifies. And therefore he doesn't seek to apologize to the questioner, the outside observer of the Jewish people, and explain away or justify necessarily the differences. But he's making 2 points. One, that it comes from every group and every individual striving to be confident and to assert that they have found the right path towards divine service. And second, that within ourselves, when needing to be there for each other, to provide for each other, those differences melt away. We therefore understand from the Maharal that the Maharal has given us at the same time both a chizuk and a challenge. On the one hand, he's told us that to some extent, the challenge that Klal Yisrael faces in achieving unity is part of the condition of Golus itself. And as we look forward to the ultimate redemption and to God reinstating to the Jewish people those key rallying points around which the Jewish nation unifies, the temple in Jerusalem, the land, the institutions that are part of the magnificence and the structure of Klal Yisrael, then unification ultimately in its completeness will follow. But at the same time, he's also challenging us to work out what unifies us, which is providing for each other, being there for each other, loving each other, and allowing each of us the space and the independence, the self-determination to find our unique path in Avodas Hashem, in the approach towards divine service and the approach towards the divine, without the need to having to prove that our approach is right for us by putting down or dismissing the approach of anyone else. And I think here we come to a key point, which is not just one of semantics, but one of essence. The term that's used is achdus, a term that we often colloquially use, oneness. Perhaps those in the audience who are etymologically inclined will be able to fully validate this. But in my limited knowledge, the term of achdus doesn't appear in Chazal, it doesn't appear in rabbinic literature of the Tanaic and Amoraic periods, and nor does it appear, to the best of my knowledge, in the original texts of the Rishonim, the early commentators. It's a term that begins to appear in what we call the Alei Achreinim, the later commentaries. I believe that one of the earliest uses of the terms is in the work Medrash Shmuel on Pirkei Avos, and in the Alshech in his commentary to Yeshaya, where we find the term achdus being used. What we do find, and that was language that we mentioned before, is the term of aguda achas, or am echad, or goy echad. For example, at Shabbos Mincha we say, Umi ka'amcha Yisrael goy echad ba'aretz. And I think the key here is that when we speak about achdus, we are speaking about ve'yosu kulam aguda echos, an am echad, meaning a multiplicity of individuals, of approaches, of expressions of spirituality and closeness to the Rabbeinu Shalom, but unified under one ideal. And the source of this is from the structure of Klal Yisrael, of the Jewish nation, from its very inception. When our progenitor, Jacob, Yaakov Avinu, had 12 tribes, 12 Shvatim, it wasn't merely that he had 12 children and with that created the basis of the Jewish people. The Arizal explained that there are 12, so to speak, sha'arim, gates in heaven, through which every tribe's tefillos, every tribe's prayers are received. The differences in the positions of the tribes of the Shvatim as they travel through the desert indicates specific tasks and specific expressions of divine service that each Shevet represented. Each Shevet inhabited a specific region of the land of Israel. Each Shevet had its own Sanhedrin, as we learn about in Daf Yomi. And that indicates that, in fact, the actual structure of the Jewish people is a multiplicity of tribes and expressions and approaches, but unified, as we mentioned, under certain and rallying around certain key ideals which unify the Jewish people. As the Maharal often points out in his work, the sanctity of the land, the sanctity of the temple, and the sanctity of the Torah and divine service. When we speak about Achdus, as we say, our Chazal, the rabbinic literature uses the term an aguda. An aguda means a number of items which are held together by a unifying band, by a unifying thread. There's certain key immutable themes without which Am Yisrael is not Am Yisrael. For example, Saadia Gaon, in his work Emunos V'Deos, says, Ein umaseinu uma elo b'Torasa. The Jewish people became a nation as they stood at the foot of Sinai. The Jewish people are the nation and the bearers of Torah. And within that, there are 12 Shvatim, a multiplicity of approaches, of expressions. And like the Maharal says, every faction and every group, the Ribbono Shel Olam gives it blessing and light because they're striving for their own unique expression of how to approach God and to achieve his closeness. But where we carry it, or it gets carried too far, says the Maharal, is the striving to prove the correctness of one's approach by having to dismiss the approach of another. That, the Maharal says, is where the greatness of Am Yisrael risks being corrupted and descending into factionalism and argument. And so if you return to the question of a nice idea or real obligation, it's an absolute obligation. And in order for the obligation to be fulfilled and not remain a nice idea, we want to be able to allow every group its space, to allow those who appear more radical than us to have their space, to allow that to be their expression of Avodas Hashem. And to see that those who may appear in our eyes lacking are merely on a journey to be able to find their own expression and their own way of being close to the Ribbono Shel Olam. Because if we all share the ideals of Torah observance, of achieving communion with Hashem, of striving for Beis HaMikdash, for the land, for prophecy, for kahuna, for the divine service in the temple, then we can form an Aguda Achas. We can be 12 tribes, 12 unique expressions of Avodas Hashem, all surrounding and all being bound together with one ideal of revealing God's magnificence in creation. As we began with the Medrash, that in order to create and in order to enable the plan, the divine intent for creation to be able to be fulfilled, va'avugudosai al eretz yisada, to allow eretz, to allow the material, to allow the mundane to be able to be consecrated, that depends on va'agudosai al eretz yisada, a unity of expression where Judaism doesn't need to be monolithic, it doesn't need to be a single strand. It's about a binding together, va'agudosai al eretz yisada. On the one hand, recognizing, not just tolerating, but appreciating the unique strength, expression, and intensity that every group brings to the Jewish people, and recognizing and being confident that one's own approach to the divine, if faithful to Torah, if faithful to the ideals of Sinai, if faithful to be agudosai al eretz yisada, if faithful to be accomplishing that ultimate goal of bringing the divine glory to the mundane, then we can allow for an aguda, we can allow for a multiplicity of approaches, Whereas the Maharal says, our striving to find the most complete relationship with Hashem doesn't cause us to have to denigrate and to dismiss anyone else's. And so, if we would want to argue and present a definition of Achdus, which will lead us to be able to fulfill that real obligation, and at the same time not remain a nice idea, is if each one of us can adhere to a simple principle that the most dominant force and ideal that guides our lives is how we have intended and how we intend in the future to place our relationship with Hashem, our relationship with God, and our part in bringing about the revelation of His glory at the center of our lives, then there's a place for each and every one of us in the Agudah. If our lives are dedicated to that ideal, to living individually and collectively our divine mission, we're dedicated to that in a wholesome way, then there's no question that each one of us can integrate with every other one of us and to achieve that magnificent goal of Agudase Be'eretz Yisada, to complete the revelation of the divine in our world and to bring about the Geula Shalema B'mhera B'yameinu.
Amen. Rav Deutsch, thank you very much. On behalf of everybody here, I want to thank you for joining us live from Eretz Yisrael. Everything should go well, and we look forward to seeing you at another time, Eretz Hashem, live at the Project Inspire Convention. Ladies and gentlemen, a few short announcements. First of all, this morning's session is being sponsored L'Zecher Nishmas Zalman Ben Aaron Doiv. May the inspiration coming from this morning's session be an aliyah for his neshama. Also, I just want to mention, I know that people have still pledge cards that are outstanding that would like to redeem them at our pledge the redemption table. But just a shout out after Steve Gar's talk yesterday. We were approached by Josie Freiberg, who has been a tremendous partner of Project Inspire, who gave us an additional $18,000 Canadian donation for Project Inspire and our new initiatives. We want to thank you very much. Thank you for your partnership, and thank you for sponsoring the welcome bags as well, as people came into the convention, the beautiful bags. Additionally, and maybe the most important announcement here, is that so far, just a live update, is that so far 45% of our participants here this Shabbos have signed up for an initiative to get involved. Really, I want to thank you. I know there's been a lot of discussion. People have definitely come over to me with all the excuses, and then as they continued excusing themselves, I pointed out there's actually an initiative that they can sign up for. So I encourage you, if you're unsure, and if it's not exactly right, and you want guidance, and you want help, and you want us to lose your number afterwards, either way, just please make sure to approach us and to sign up for an initiative. Now's the time. Just a short message before we continue further is that, as you know, this is being live streamed on TorahAnytime.com. And Torah Anytime has been not only a tremendous partner of Project Inspire, but a tremendous resource for Klal Yisrael. And just very short words from Shimon Kol Yaakov from Torah Anytime about upcoming Torah Anytime initiatives.
Okay, Baruch Hashem, thank you so much to Project Inspire for giving Torah Anytime the tremendous chus to record all the sessions, of course, before and after Shabbos, and sharing it with the world. It's a big chus for us to be here. Thank you very much. Just a very, very exciting announcement. Baruch Hashem, 3 years in the making, and the Daily Dose book is finally available, and it should be in each and every one of yours welcome packages. Thank you to our sponsor, Josie Freiberg, for sponsoring these books. This is a very, thank you, yes. It's a very unique book. It has over 70 amazing Torah Anytime speakers. Some of them were here with us at the convention. Over 250 powerful, life-changing messages. There's something for everyone. And if anyone is interested to give these out at conventions, at Shabbatons, at gatherings, at school dinners, this is one of the greatest gifts for the attendees. We could offer it at an extreme discount. We're not here to make money. We're here to spread as much Torah as we can to as many people as possible. Just email us at shimon@torahanytime.com, and we'll tell you all about it. And you also get a personalized message on the inside cover as well. And the last thing I want to mention is, in honor of this convention, we're doing something very special. We're accepting names and yahrzeit dates of loved ones who passed on. And on the upcoming yahrzeit, we will dedicate all the learning on Torah Anytime, which is 40,000 hours a day, in their schus for no money at all. Please fill out these orange cards before you leave. Usually it's $100 a name, but again, we're not taking any money for this. Fill out these orange cards before you leave, and they're neshamas you have an aliyah. And thank you for making Torah Anytime one of the largest Torah spreading organizations in the world. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we go to our final speaker of the weekend, who was on the schedule, it's only fitting we started this weekend with the important message of getting involved, of raising our hands, of saying, "Count me in." We started that message, Charlie Harari started us off Friday night, and before we get to Rabbi Shlomo Farchi, it's my honor and pleasure to reintroduce to you Charlie Harari.
Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. For those who are watching this live, wherever you're watching it or on tape, the opportunity to get involved is not just for the people that are here, it's now and forever. And I want to maybe share with you one perspective before we hear from Ray Farhi and close out the day, as to really what blocks us and maybe what can drive us. Not that I know personally, but from the people that I've learned from, as to why one should really take the time, because one of the things that we've heard a lot from people is, I don't know, what can I do, what I can't do. And just to be clear about something, the initiatives that we have for people to get involved in are just the beginning. If you say, I can't do any of these, but it would really be great if I did this, think to yourself, if you were here in a year from now, and you said, I can really help in this way, and Project Inspires, that's actually a pretty good idea, we can use that. Or Aaron Lokic stood here on Friday night and said, we need your help, I need the cover. And if you're in the room right now and you're going, well, the things that are on the board are good, but I really can do this. Imagine in a year from now you're back, and the thing that you have in your head right now is an initiative outside, and there's 50 people doing that thing. That's nitzchias. That's for yours forever. The opportunity to realize that each and every one of us are put into this world, as we said Friday night, with a teva. And the teva that we have is something that is inside us, that is supposed to be given to Hashem. And we have lives, we got to live our lives. But if you have that piece of you, that teva inside you, and you lift it up in the way that you're here for Hashem, you can't imagine how many people that are not here that can benefit from that way of thinking. And maybe you're going to start your initiative right here. So don't walk out without at least saying, I'm in. Now I want to share with you one perspective maybe. This is how I understand the Sefer HaChinuch has an approach towards Avos Hashem. Just let me give you a thought, and then I'll bring up Rabbi Farhi. Why is it that we have to get involved? So there's a story that I heard years ago in this context that I want to share. The story is about a dad, businessman. And like many times in life, when you're running a company, you have to invoke the confidence of your colleagues, of the people you want to do business with, of your lenders, of your investors. And some of the ways you do that is by showing that you're doing great. It's a game. If you show you're doing well, the people around you goes, they're doing well. I know people that are in certain businesses and they overspend on the cars they drive in order to create an assumption that when they pull up, the question is it's not for now. But the question is, they pull up, people go, oh wow, they drive that, they must be doing well, I'll invest money with you. It could be complicated. Either way, the way this story goes is a man says, listen, I run a company, I have a lot of people that rely on me, that invest with me. And he has 3 kids. His first 2 sons are married, and now his youngest and only daughter was getting married. And he said, I'm going to blow out this wedding. I'm going to invite everybody, and when everybody comes, they're going to see just how successful I am, and was his strategy. So he brings his boys into his office, and he says, boys, listen to me. Spend whatever you need to spend. I want you to look amazing. When my people show up at the wedding, they see my kids, they should look amazing. Whatever you spend for me, whatever you spend so that your sister's wedding is perfect. I'll handle the flowers, I'll handle the hall, but you have to handle how you look. The way you look represents me and your mother, and I want you to look amazing. Whatever you spend, it's on the house. He's got 2 boys. His first boy is a chip off the old block. You don't got to tell him twice to spend money. He's like, you got it. And he married, God bless, a woman who, forget that. She definitely doesn't need to be told how to spend money. So he hears that. It's on the house. Before the word house was finished, he was already ordering. He was already taking a tour. He already had his wife on speed dial. His second son, Hamish. He's happy when he gets up in the morning. He's ish pnimi, as they say. Putting on a tie is getting dressed up. And his wife, also from the same type, she's just happy. So the 2 of them start going out. The first son and his wife, they go on a spree. And they look, forget about it. They're buying custom, this, that. The kids all match perfectly, this and that, the vests, the shoes, out of a magazine. The second son walks out and goes, okay, I should go shopping at some point. And the day of the wedding comes, and the doors open up for the chuppah, or I don't know if it was a Jewish thing, for the ceremony, boom. And the father and mother come out because they want to see their kids. And all the guests are all wined and dined, and the son comes out with his wife, and they look, it's like they thought they were looking at royalty. And the kids behind them, everybody looks, wow. And the father is beaming as the oldest son looks amazing. And the door closes, and doors open up again. And now the second son comes out. And he just remembered that morning he needed to wear a tie. And he rumbled on the bottom of his thing, and he took out his tie that was half. And his wife just forgot that it was, and she borrowed someone's outfit that half fit, half didn't fit. And they came down the aisle, and people were smiling, and the father he couldn't believe his eyes. The wedding is over, Sheva Brachas, if there was Jewish. After Sheva Brachas, the oldest son walks in, and he goes, Daddy, we got to true up. He goes, what are we truing up? He says, what do you mean we're truing up? Do you know what that cost us? It's on the house. We did it for you. L'chvodcha. See, he says, you guys looked amazing, really. The compliments that I got about you and your wife and the kids, it was beyond, really. He says, you're welcome. And he goes, I'm not paying for a penny of it. He goes, what do you mean? You told me, I sat in the room. You said, whatever you buy for our honor is on you. You know how much that cost us? He says, you bought it for my honor? He goes, you don't know your brother? You thought your brother was going shopping? Your wife doesn't know her sister-in-law? Did you think for a second what happened when they walked in the room? You didn't know that they were going to walk in the room with the crumpled tie? You didn't think for a second? You don't know him long enough? She doesn't know her long enough to know? How do you think we felt when the door closed and then they walked in? It wasn't a busha on our family? I'm trying to set an image and my son walks in not dressed properly? You think you bought that for me? If you would have bought your brother a suit, then I would have known you bought it for me. You bought it for yourself. I'm not paying for yourself. That wasn't for my honor. That was for your honor. I'm not paying a penny. There's 3 levels, in my opinion, of our relationship to the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Bani Esdaiti. The first level is acting towards Hashem. You know, you see a little kid. When the kids are very little, their first relationship to their parents is very selfish. If the kid is crying in the middle of the night, he's not thinking, well, mommy just gave birth to me and the woman needs to sleep. And it's formula. It's disgusting anyways. I'll wait 3 hours. No one's cheshboning that. Get up now. You think it ends at 6 months. It goes into the 20s, by the way. There's a sense that kids have that if I'm upset, Of course, mommy has nothing in the world to do but to dote on me until I feel better. And then when they're little, we try to get them to do stuff like remember that it's mommy's birthday, and they just follow along. And it happens all the time. It's like young couples. They just know. They don't really have, but they know. It's like the famous story of the guy who comes home and he forgets his wife's anniversary, and he comes home and the wife says, hello. He goes, hello. Anything special today? He goes, it's Tuesday. Anything happened 20 years ago today? Sun rose, sun set. He goes, we got married. She goes, oh, congratulations, happy anniversary. She's upset. He's out. He goes to the rabbi. Rabbi goes, she's a woman. Treat her with respect. They care about these things. He goes, what do I do? He goes, go to the flower store. Buy the biggest bouquet of flowers you can find. Bring it to your wife for your anniversary. He goes, Rabbi, you are not only a scholar, you're a gentleman. I'm the luckiest congregant in the world. He goes, you're welcome. He goes to the flower store. He buys the biggest bouquet of flowers. He knocks on the door. She opens the door. He goes, here, the rabbi told me to buy these for you. We do this for Hashem, by the way. Here, the rabbi told me to put these on for you. Here, the rabbi made me not eat this food for you. It's the first level. At least we're doing something. The second level is the heart we put into it. We love somebody. We think about them. We give to them. We know how much it means to them. We buy them their favorite stuff. And we recognize that objects are just really mechanisms to put emotion into. Once you realize that your parents love something and you buy it for them, when your spouse loves something, you buy it for the person. When they feel loved, they feel thought of. It's the next level up of what it means to be an Ohev Hashem. Hashem loves when you act a certain way, so you do it even if you don't have to do it. The way you daven, the kavana, going above, your mahadir, the mitzvahs. That's all the next level up in love of Hashem. But there's one more level. And B'Anias Daiti, this is a level that we're talking about the whole Shabbos. This is what I think we need to get to before we walk out this door. When you see a parent, they say the following rule. That a parent is only as happy as their least happy child. For the parents in the room, am I right? Everything could be great. You walk into a room, everything's perfect. One kid's upset. Your head is in that kid. I once was talking to a mother whose kids was a little sick. She was walking down past the bedecking of her daughter, like, holding her daughter, and she tells someone, go tell my son that. I'm like, what? She, on the bedecking came in. The parents are like watching the eyes of, their kids. How they doing? How they doing? How they doing? How they doing? Because the highest level of love is not giving to you. The highest level of love is seeing through you. I see the world through your eyes. That's how parents, it's a chachma that doesn't come from the mind, it comes from the lave. You could have a grandmother sitting in a room, and she's got the whole family, and she knows it. How does she know? Because she feels through somebody else. The highest level of love is when you see the world through the eyes of another. What does my wife feel like? What do my kids feel like? I need to give to them not based on what I want to give, but what they want me to give. When we reach that level of love, that's what it means to be one. I don't feel separately from you. I feel one with you. I don't have my feelings and your feelings. We have feelings together. If you're upset, I can see you, so I'm upset. What in the world are we doing here? And I'm looking at this room, just even a little bit here, people that have given their lives to this. Clothing is physical and it's spiritual. When you put on clothing in the morning, you're not supposed to put on two things at the same time because Rav Ovadia says each clothing is R. There's spiritual clothing and there's physical clothing and there's spiritual clothing. There are people in the world that the Kadosh Baruch Hu gave a gift to. It's called spiritual clothing. He gave people yeshivas and families and role models. He gave people journeys that came back. He gave people clothings of R, which is what it feels like to have a Shabbos, what it feels like to be a Jew, what it feels like to close your eyes and feel like the creator of humanity knows your name and is listening to you, what it feels like to be part of Klal Yisrael, what it feels like to say a Shir Malos with 1,000 people, what it feels like to get news from Israel and somehow you think that you're connected to the hostages because you understand the concept of Klal Yisrael. What it feels like to be a firm Jew is the greatest it's the greatest clothing we can walk around with. And Hashem gave certain people the ability to have a knack for it. We didn't earn that. We worked for it, but he gave it to us. And when we live our lives, if we look at it from the perspective of what I give to others, that's all it lasts for. But if we think about what it must be like for Hashem in Shemayim right now to look down to every single one of his children and see kids that may not have had the same ability to wrap themselves up with the aura of Hashem. It's not their fault. They've never once had Shabbos. They don't know what it feels like when it's 5 o'clock in February and Shabbos is starting and you're like, I got 25 hours left. Doors are locked. They don't know what it's like to have the joys of what it means to be from, that joy of the post-fast bagel. Like, there's a greater joy than that. They don't know what it's like. They don't have a shot. They're wonderful people. They're wonderful people. They can't read Hebrew. No one taught them Hebrew. They don't know what it's like to sit in a room and close their eyes when somebody's singing a song during Kedusha and people are crying. They're going to feel what the feeling of I have Hashem even though the world's coming against me. They're going to say Tehillim in a hospital room, Chas v'shalom. And we're walking down the aisles of life so proud of ourselves. Look at my clothing. Look at my Torah. Look at my everything. And we walk the aisle and we bought it and we look amazing. And Daddy looks at us from Shemayim and says, look at Malachim. Look at my kids. Rubanai. The whole world's gone nuts and a few people still hold on to my Torah. Look, they're wrapped in clothing of light. And then the door opens up again and there's no clothing here. It's not their fault. They don't have the knack for it. And we come to the Kodesh Baruch and go, ah. And he goes, ah. Did you think about the people behind you? Did you think about me? What about my perspective, Hashem says? I'm the dad. I see the world through the eyes of my kids. You don't think when I look at my children don't have the clothes on, I'm not heartbroken? Did you think about your brother? Did you think about your sister? You couldn't take them shopping? For what? For money? I give you money. For health? I give you health. For the nourishment of our lives? I give you your life. You know, in a second, I can make your life more or less busy. In a second. I don't own this. I'm not a career professional. The people that you heard on this. I'm a regular dude. The reason why we're here is not because we think we're going to give to somebody. The reason why we're here is because Avas Hashem, loving Hashem, means seeing the world through his eyes. The Sefer HaChinuch says, B'chal mitzvahs Avas Hashem hu, hachiv lefarsein, esa emunah barabim. Because Havas Hashem means, I think about you, Hashem. Rav Noach, and I'm done now. Rav Noach once said to me, I once had the chance to meet Rav Noach live many years ago. He said to me that every night he does Tikkun Chatzos. I'm sure he does the real Tikkun Chatzos too. He goes, you know what my Tikkun Chatzos is? He goes, every night I sit on the floor and I think about the world from Hashem's perspective. Imagine that every night. That's how you become Rav Noach. Sit on the floor and go, how does Hashem see the world? The Tsar. You sit at a wedding, you sit at a simcha, and the mom gets every kid. The Kodesh Baruch Hu looks down and he sees every kid. When one of his kids that have the knack for Yiddishkeit stops and goes, I keep on putting on the right clothing, but hold on a second, how does my daddy see the world? He's in pain over my brothers and sisters. I can't change the world, but I can at least take him shopping spiritually. Can you imagine the nachas? Is there more nachas from a parent when a kid takes care of his brother and sister? We're not getting involved because we're changing the world. Let's pretend. Let's stop pretending. We're playing Lego. This is a joke. We're literally we says all the time. You know what we're getting involved for? Because we're showing Hashem that we love him. This is not about us and another Jew. This is about us and Hashem. We turn to Hashem and say, I love you, Hashem. And what that means is I think from your perspective. And if you're in pain over some Jew that doesn't wear the clothing of R, then I'm in pain. And I'll take my brother shopping. Wherever you are, online or live, Project Inspire, or do it yourself. They don't have to do Project Inspire. Who cares? Involved. Do something. inspiration. We're post-October. No more. We're activation now. We're in activation mode. And if all of us together did something, raised our hand in the teva that Hashem gave us to take our brothers and sisters spiritually shopping for Hashem, because we don't want him to be in pain. Kiviyachol. That's what a father is waiting for. That's what it means to be, I believe, a Jew in a world of lech knos es kol haYehudim, in the world of mishloach manos ish l're'eo. And together, even by just trying, Hashem should look down and see us here on a Sunday morning and doing this. And together, we should have the schus that he sees how much we care about each other, and he'll go, I got it. I'll take care of it myself. And we should have a conference like this next year, maybe in the Waldorf. Maybe better. Steve's got the building. Maybe we'll go to the Eish on top of the Eish building. We should be zocher to see this happening with Mashiach Zidkenu v'mher b'yameinu. Amen.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Charlie. Before we end with Rabbi Shlomo Farchi, the most important announcement of the weekend. Yes, there will be to-go containers to take lunch home with you. There, I said it. Have in mind that it'll be available only into lunch so that people don't walk away with the entire containers. Last year, somebody wheeled the entire buffet into their van while complaining to me about how much food there was over this weekend. So there will be. Also, final checkout is at 1 p.m. And please, your hard keys, we need both keys at the front desk so that we're not charged. And unfortunately, we'll have to pass that charge on to you. So please make sure that you find your keys and return them. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a spectacular weekend, I believe, from beginning to end. It really... And more important and more special than all the presenters and speakers, and there were so many of them and so many amazing presentations, were all of you who came out to spend the time to be here even on a Sunday morning when life was supposed to get back to things, to here to continue the inspiration, of course, the activation, to become active. Without further ado, he's been here before at the Project Inspire convention. He's an inspiration to us all. He himself is involved as the rabbi of the Safra Synagogue in Manhattan, has been involved in so many projects, outreach projects around the world. It's a great honor to invite, once again, to re-invite to the Project Inspire convention, Rabbi Shlomo Farchi.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to be here. And after hearing from Yossi what you guys have been able to accomplish and hear and feel over this past Shabbat, I'm truly jealous. Kinat sofrim tarbeh chokhmah. Sometimes I'm not sure what I want to say, and sometimes I have so much that I want to say that I kind of wish my shul let me get out for Shabbat more, so that I could have been here to speak to you at least a couple of times. But I'm going to try and squeeze it all in to the time that they've given me today before you wheel the food out into your van. I had this feeling, Yossi, the reason the guy was wheeling the food out, because he felt he didn't get enough food over Shabbat. That was how he was getting his money worth. That was the feeling over there. We always have to judge people favorably, so that's what's going on in my mind. Same feeling why people have when they take soaps and shampoos from hotels to then bring home and never open in your own bathroom, to then take more when you go to the hotel, and you tell your wife, why? We didn't open the ones that we had, just in case. Thinking of creating a Mashiach suitcase just filled with tiny tubes of toothpaste Let's begin. When we think about Purim, oftentimes we think about the salvation, the save, how things were fixed. And what's interesting to me is that as someone who's been doing this for a minute and a half, I know Charlie probably feels the same way, one of my very closest friends. You know, a lot of times you feel when you're sitting with somebody, I wish that you came to ask me this question before you were in the problem. I wish we weren't solving this issue. Instead, we were avoiding it to begin with. So in understanding the story of Purim, so much time goes into an effort and focus goes into understanding the save. But I don't know if enough time goes into understanding how we could have avoided the problem to begin with. I'll start with the Gemara. The Gemara says, they came to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and they asked him, why did the Jews deserve that they should have Haman stand up against them and wipe them out? I mean, thank God we're saved in the 90th minute. But why? Why did we get to that place? When we were facing Amalek, we know it was from Refidim. Rafu yedehem, their hands had become weak. They'd lowered their standards in Torah and mitzvot. But what did the Jews do that allowed Amalek to come knocking? What happened? And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai answers, because they enjoyed the seudah of Achashverosh. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, that doesn't sound like it's worth a national karet. What was wrong with the seudah? Some opinions hold that the food was even kosher. Was it the yayin nesech? Find that hard to believe. According to some opinions as well, it wasn't even that. They got mashkichim to pour the wine. So what could have been the problem? And if the problem was eating or drinking, it should have said that they ate or they drank. The key is in understanding that it says shenehenu, that they enjoyed it. And why was Hashem denying them that enjoyment? What was so wrong about their enjoyment of that seudah? My friends, I think there's something here that's unbelievable. And the answer is actually very simple. We are told that at the seudah, they had the vessels of the Beit HaMikdash. One might think, therefore the punishment was because they were being mo'el. It was me'ilah behekdesh. They were using the vessels of the temple. No. That's not it. Then it should have said that they were mo'el in the vessels of the temple, of the Beit HaMikdash. Doesn't say that. My friends, there's something here. Shenehenu mesudato shelo torasha. That Achashverosh was taking out the vessels of the temple because he thought, he understood from Haman that the 70 years of Galut were over. And God's promise that he would redeem the Jewish people and bring them back to Eretz Israel, rebuild the Beit HaMikdash, Mashiach, all of that, it was not true. It was never going to happen. And if it was never going to happen, we may as well use the temple, the kelim, mikelim shonim. So Achashverosh brings them out. But when the Jews came, instead of seeing that they would not be redeemed, instead of seeing that they wouldn't be the Jewish people anymore, they rejoiced. It's like that famous joke. Jewish person meets with Hashem, and he says, Hashem, is it true we're the chosen people? And Hashem says yes, and he says, Oy, could you choose someone else for a while? The anti-Semitism, the attacks for being Jewish people. Could you choose someone else? Holocaust, pogroms, Cossacks. My friends, Am Yisrael, in the throes of Galut, they felt, if we're not being redeemed, if Hashem's not taking us back, if maybe He's left us alone, there was a certain hana'ah that they had, that they were not going home, that they were not the Jews anymore. My friends, I want to share with you what I believe is the source of that almost Holocaust. You know, if you judge by people's social media profiles or some articles that you find online, one could be forgiven for thinking that the most important thing that a person has to do for parnasah is put a key in a challah. I'm not here to tell you that you should not put keys in challahs. One year, I wanted to put an entire key ring into my challahs. But I just feel that that's probably something that you do on top of emunah in Hashem. I think. Like if you're an atheist, but bought a challah and a key, does that work? I think emunah comes before. Probably prayer, tefillah, comes before a shlisel in a challah, probably. Are we on the same page? But my friends, there's something that I believe is even more elemental than that. More elemental than davening. And we say it every single day. The eyes of every living being, they turn to you, God, latet lahem, right, to give them in order they should have ochlam be'ito. Ta'ata noten lahem et ochlam be'ito. Poteach et yadecha, Hashem, you open up your hand, umazbia lechol chai ratzon, and you give every living being what they need. What does it take to get God to give you everything you need in this life? Ratzon, whatever you want. What does it take? It doesn't say, Poteach et yadecha umazbia lechol tzadik ratzon. It doesn't say lechol tamid chacham, lechol kolel yungerman. It doesn't say lechol baal chesed. What does it say? Lechol chai. The only thing you need in order to get sustenance from God is what? Bracha from God is what? You just need to be alive. My friends, dogs get food from Hashem. Mosquitoes, buffet. I wish I hated rish'ut as much as I hate mosquitoes. But Hashem provides for every living being. How come every living being doesn't need a job and only the smartest of all living beings need a job? Right? You ever saw a goldfish, right, who's doing taxes? No. Somehow he manages. You ever saw, right? You ever saw a giraffe in your life? You ever saw a giraffe decide to take on part-time Uber, his head out the sunroof? You ever saw that? You never saw. You ever saw a dog go be a lawyer? Okay, sorry. Why is it that the only being that needs to get a job for parnasah is the top of the food chain, the smartest of all the animals? And the answer, my friends, is beautiful. The answer is because you know why God gives everybody in this world what they need? Because they are doing their job. What is a dog? A dog is a dog is a dog is a dog. He's doing his job perfectly. Hashem provides him his parnasah, whatever he needs. What is a goldfish doing? That is his job. I just imagine a little goldfish sitting with their parents. Parents are very nervous. They're sitting in the principal's office. He just doesn't get it. We keep showing him. There's books on chinuch for goldfish. It's just one page. I don't understand. A goldfish only has one job. It does it well. Only the smartest of human beings could not know how to do their job. And if you're doing your job, you have a purpose in this world, Hashem, He's got you. But the minute you're trying to be something other than what you're supposed to be, what happens? The source of your bracha, your mazal, your life force itself is cut. Because the only reason why you're here, the only reason why you're here, is to do what Hashem wants from you. And if you're not doing that, there's no reason for you to be here. You guys remember the PPP loans during COVID? Imagine a guy who's working for a law firm, and the only thing he does is PPP loans. After COVID, there's no reason for them to keep him. Because the thing he's doing, there's no parnasah in the thing if you don't have a job. My friends, that's the Seudah of Achashverosh. The Jewish people for a minute said, oh, you know something? We don't have to be Jews. We'll just be Persians. To be clear, I'm not referring to Persian Jews. I don't need death threats from your community in Great Neck. Relax. We'll just be like everybody else. But if you're everybody else and you're not you, you have no zchut kiyum. And then every man, woman, and child is not killed, but they have no reason to be able to live. That's the power. Those are the keys that we handed to Haman. Let me show you how this plays out in the Megillah, and then you'll know why I'm ranting about this morning. Esther goes into the palace. She's very afraid. She doesn't know what's going on. Mordechai tells her what's going on. She feels terrible. He says, you need to go into the king. She says, I can't. I haven't been called. You know that means a death sentence. Mordechai says, beautiful language, Al tedami benavshech. Don't think that you're safe. Limalet bet hamelech, to escape to the palace from all the Jews. Ki macharesh tacharishi, if you remain quiet. Be'et hazot, in this time, revach v'atzala yamod la'Yehudim makom acher. The Jewish people will be saved another way. And you and your father's house will be destroyed. Who knows if for a time like this is not the reason why you came to this position? My friends, I'm looking at this, and it makes, for a second, it gives you goosebumps. What is Esther saying? What is she saying to her uncle? Or maybe, according to another opinion, to her husband. Someone who sat outside the door every single day. Mordechai loves Esther. He raised her. Esther says, Mordechai, I'm afraid. He's going to kill me. I don't know what you would say if your daughter said this to you. But I know I wouldn't say to her, well, if you don't go, you're just going to die. Everyone, your whole family. Who talks like that? What is Mordechai saying? Where's his compassion? Where's his empathy? The answer is, Mordechai is telling Esther, out of love and concern. What is a good frum Jewish girl? Why was she kidnapped? Why was she taken? Why was she put in the palace? We didn't know until now. But now we know why you are where you are. And Esther, if you hide in your house and you don't do what you're supposed to do, at ubet avich tovedu, your whole existence will be cut short, because we get our beracha in this life from doing what we are uniquely supposed to do. And is it ever been more obvious in the history of the world what you were supposed to do in this moment than Esther in the palace of the king with the decree and the life of the Jews hanging in the balance? My friends, the Mesilat Yesharim in his opening line says something incredible. He says that a person needs to know, and it needs to be clear to them, ma chovato be'olamo, what is his responsibility in his world. Now, in English, we could have said it different. The Vilna Gaon says that there's not one single extra word. Everything is exactly as it's supposed to be. Ma chovato be'olamo. You know what that means? What is your responsibility in your world? Not as what the responsibility of a Jew, but what is your responsibility in your world? My friends, when I saw the 6 different options that they prepared on the walls, I understood what the Mesilat Yesharim was talking about. What is your job in your world? If God put Esther in the palace, it's because she's supposed to use the palace. And your job with your world, Finally, someone has done what Project Inspire is doing. They've made you your chovah without you ever needing to leave your world. And that, my friends, is the source of all of your beracha. It's asking you, what do you have to give to this great mission? Your brothers and sisters are dying. My friends, if anyone here saw the pshat of the Malbim, it would shake you to your very bones. The Malbim says that there are two different points. There's a decree that goes out, and Mordechai is going out alone crying in the streets. How come all the other Jews aren't crying and kvetching? How come only Mordechai? He gets to the palace. Esther's like, what's going on? How did she not know? Was she not on the WhatsApp status of the Jewish people? How did she not know what was going on? Says the Malbim, there were two decrees. One decree was sealed for the 13th day of Adar. Don't open it until then. The second decree only said one line. It said, everybody in every country, be prepared for the 13th day of Adar. Be prepared for war. But it didn't say against who. Unbelievable chidush of the Malbim. Mordechai, because he knew. He goes out, tells everybody what's going on. But without Mordechai, they would have gotten to that day. Everyone would have been taken by surprise. Esther, therefore, doesn't know. My friends, I started shaking when I saw this. Because the Malbim reminds me of October 6th. We were all sitting and celebrating and so happy. In our homes, Sukkot, getting ready, Simchat Torah, unbelievable, so much joy, not knowing what was about to take place. The ason that was heading our way, the sadness, the pain, the destruction, the death. We had no idea it was coming. There was a gezerah, it was sealed, it was signed, it was delivered, and we had no idea. The Jews had no idea until Mordechai told them. My friends, not only October 6th, but March 9th. There is a war out there trying to destroy all of the Jewish people. Selling them liberal attitudes, selling them anything but Judaism. And people are being robbed. I had a young man in my house this Friday night at the Shabbat table. He's very inspired. He has no ideas. He takes out his phone at the Shabbat table. And he says, this is amazing. Could you recommend some books I could read about, getting more connected to Judaism? He wants to write them down on his phone. I said, start with the 39 Melachot. I did not say that. I did not say that. Although, whoever made that book that was made for children should just know that they use that book with all of the pictures in every kollel that's learning Shabbat, by the way. Because the job that they did on that sefer, the 39 melachot with the drawing, with the deoraitas and the drabanans and the notes in the back, is imperative for clarity in the sukkot. It's unbelievable. My friends, he's starving for it. But he doesn't know because someone took it from him. A war's been declared, but they haven't said against who. You have the opportunity. You think to yourself, you know what? I don't know. Let the guy go on an Aish program. Let him go on an Olami program. I have a secret for you. Programs are not Mikarev Jews. People are Mikarev Jews. I don't know what to say to the guy. I didn't study, theology, Christianity. I don't know what to say. By the way, every frum person thinks that when a Jewish person comes to their house, they need to know how to disprove Christianity. I have news for you. That's not the struggle. It's not that or this. It's Instagram or Judaism. It's J Street or Judaism. It's Wall Street or Judaism. So if you think you need to argue with them, Kiruv is not about arguments. It's about connections. You never learned how to talk dam al hashiv. Okay, gotcha. Did you learn how to make challah? You know how many Jews came back to Judaism because of challah? I want to share with you a beautiful line. The pasuk says, by Avraham Avinu, he didn't just believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He brought people in. He had them for meals. He sat them underneath his tree. He served them like they were royalty. He didn't judge them for the avodah zarah they brought into his house. Someone asked me, the guy has a phone. I was like, I have eyes. And I said, I made a gzerah shava. He said, what's the gzerah shava? I said, the gzerah shava is that it says by Avraham Avinu, v'rachatzu raglechem, wash off your feet from the avodah zarah, say the chachamim. That's why he was telling him to wash off his feet. He said, what's the gzerah shava? This from guy. I said to him, all the pashkevilin in Eretz Israel, it says an iPhone is equal to avodah zarah. So if he brought in his iPhone, which according to the signs is avodah zarah, he brought it into my home, then I have a lesson to learn from Avraham Avinu, who still welcomed them into his home. I want to share with you the most beautiful pshat in what Avraham Avinu was doing. Now, I have to ask you, was the midah of Avraham Avinu kiruv? What do we know his midah was? Chesed. You've been waiting with that answer for a very long time. I can see that just like popped out. There's certain answers, if you teach long enough, there's certain things that people have heard long enough, many, many times, so they're like waiting for the thing. They're like, so it's not a thing, it's not physical. They're like, it's spiritual. But that means that chesed is busting out of you. Beautiful. Avram was not a Makarev, but he was also the biggest Makarev. He believed in Hashem so much. His desire to smash idols was so great. And by the way, growing up in the yeshiva world, is that not an expression of our frumkeit? That we want to smash sheker? That we want to say that this is silly and what we have is true? If you feel that inside your bones and you believe in it like Avraham Avinu, you know what you have to do? You must share it. Because how could you see someone who's literally dying in front of you? He doesn't know there's a gezerah on him. He's not sure. He doesn't understand. He's cutting off his children, his children's children. How could you not intervene? Avraham Avinu says, come into my house. Ekra pat lechem. I'm going to get you some bread. Sa'adu libchem. Enjoy. Achar ta'avoru. And then leave. I always was bothered by this. You ever do that? Come for Shabbat lunch, and then at 12 o'clock, leave. You could be honest. You want to do that. I had an uncle who would shut the lights whenever he wanted guests to leave. Oh, look at that, the lights went off. I saw you turn them off. Obviously not talking about Shabbat here. Potato. What is Avram saying? He's the biggest machnis oreach ever. Why is he telling them to leave? And I saw the most beautiful pshat. Because what we know is that he would give them food to eat. And then when they had the food to eat, what would he tell them to do? Do birkat hamazon. Avraham Avinu told his guests before they signed on the dotted line, you want to come to Chateau Avraham. Come eat, drink, and then don't do anything else. Don't enroll in yeshiva. Don't keep Shabbat. Don't wear tzitzit. Don't put on tefillin. Just leave. I'm happy to just have you in order to do chesed with you. That's what Judaism is about. Olam chesed yibaneh. You don't have the answers. Your Shabbat table is an answer. You don't have the answers. Your boardroom is an answer. My friends, When Abraham does that, he doesn't make an argument with them, even though he knows how to argue, because he's gone through the cheshbon himself when he first became frum. What does Avram say? Come on over. We have delicious meat and fantastic ugot with even a little bit of mustard. My friends, I want to end by saying this, because the hour is late. How long do I have till Yossi? I don't know what that means. Do we have a chart for immigration you could put right over there? Some people got it. Okay, whatever. You win some, you lose some. The Midrash tells us that when you have a coal and the coal is about to go out, I don't know if any of you have done this before. You have a coal, it's a fire, it's burned low. All you need to do is you lean in and you just go, and what happens to the coal? Instantly, you see it come back to life. It's amazing. The tiniest breath from someone when a coal is dying is enough to be able to bring it back to a roaring fire. What people don't believe in their heart of hearts is that actually this person sitting in front of me, we think he really doesn't want to be connected to Judaism. What can I do to convince him to join my craziness? That's what people think. I remember hearing from Rabbi Cooper Smith when he would tell people that he used to play hockey, they're like, why did you, from Jews would ask him, like, why would you become from Jews? Well, don't you know what you have? That should not be surprising. It should be surprising that someone doesn't want it or doesn't have it. If you believe that this person is dying to learn more, then you're very happy to share, right? Well, what if you could think that they're dying to know more before they tell you that they're dying to know more? Because that's the real emet. Then you'd share. Then you'd be confident. Then you'd be giving. All you have to do is just blow the tiniest bit on the coal and it springs back to life immediately. My friends, we know that Hatach is called Hatach, but really his name, says the Gemara in Megillah, was Daniel. And why was he called Hatach instead of Daniel? Says Rav, Shechatchuhu migdulato. They cut him down from his Gedulah. And the question is, why was Daniel cut down from his Gedulah? Different opinions. A simple pshat is that, you know what, Achashverosh demoted him. He used to be an advisor to the king, and now all he was a helper to Esther. That's the simple, straightforward pshat. A little more complicated is people say that Am Yisrael chatchuhu migdulato. We cut him down from his greatness. And I want to share with you the pshat of the Meshech Chochmah. The Meshech Chochmah says, why was Daniel considered so great in the eyes of the Jewish people? Everybody knows one thing about Daniel. Misha ana le Daniel. Right? It depends on if you're Sephardic or Ashkenaz. Begubah da'ayavata. In the lion's den, in the lion's pit. Why was Daniel thrown in the lion's pit? Anyone know? Because in the time of Daryavish, they made a decree. And the decree was that for 30 days, no one was allowed to ask for anything from human or God, only the king Daryavish. They wanted to solidify his position as king. So they said, anyone who prays, you know what we're going to do to that person? We're going to throw him in the lion's den. And what happened? Daniel prayed 3 times a day. They threw him in the lion's den. Daniel was great. Says the Meshech Chochmah. But now, Esther is going to ask every one of the Jews to fast for 3 days. To not have food past their lips, not until the night. 3 straight days. If you think you kvetch after a tanis, they don't make kalei tzom times 3. Starving. 3 days. No food, no water. Davening from the depth of their souls. You know what they saw when they were able to do that? They saw that it wasn't just Daniel who could do it. I could do it. I could daven like that. I could risk my life to pray to Hashem. I have emunah like that. Ladies and gentlemen, Higanu, we've reached that point. We are in the generation of Hester Panim like we have never seen Hester Panim before. For 500 days, have we not wondered, where is Hashem? We're living in Hester Panim. So the answer is, look back to Hester Panim and see, how did we solve the problem? In a time where God's name is eliminated from the Megillah, it comes to me and to you to stand up, minar v'ad zaken, nashim v'taf, to do what Hashem wants us to do. And my friends, there is nothing that Hashem wants us to do more in a time of Hester Panim than lech kenos et kol haYehudim. Go get them. Let them fast for 3 days and do teshuvah. Let them call out to God and know who they're calling out to. My friends, I want to share with you an example of this that will touch you, hopefully, and drive you to each one of these beautiful initiatives. Because Project Inspire has prepared 6. But there's not only 6, there's 600. There's not only 600, there's 6,000. There's not only 6,000, there's 600,000 ways. Like the 600,000 souls of the Jews, where every single Jew has their own way, and therefore every single Jew has their own heart to offer. There was a young boy, and I'll end with this. A young boy who's a bit of a troublemaker. You and I both know that not every kid was cut out for school. Unfortunately, some kids, they were born for homeschool. We all know a kid like that. And the only reason why they're not in homeschool, even though they're only cut out for homeschool, is because I was not cut out to give homeschool. I want to make sure that I don't unalive myself. My friends, this young boy, he's struggling and struggling and struggling in school. He doesn't know what to do. He can't help himself. He's running around. He's a troublemaker. And then one day, his Melamed walks into the Bet Midrash of the yeshiva, and he can smell something interesting, shall we say, in the Bet Midrash. He's walking around, smelling, trying to find the source of this wonderful smell. Can't figure it out. They start the tefillah. Finally, they open up the Aron Kodesh for the prayers, for the take out the Sefer Torah. And all of a sudden, out of the Aron Kodesh jumps a goat. I know that some of you think that happens in Sephardic shuls. It doesn't. Racists. Opens, a goat jumps out. And everyone is flipping out, and the Rebbe looks around, and of course he sees his troublemaker extraordinaire right over there in the corner, laughing his head off. Immediately, he tells the boy, "Get out, you're expelled." The boy says, "Thank you." One of the biggest challenges that teachers struggle with is that they don't know how to punish children in a way where the kid thinks that it's also a punishment. So the kid's like, home? That is fantastic. So he leaves. About a week later, the boy comes back, and he walks into the yeshiva, and the Rebbe says, "What are you doing here?" He says, "Oh, I'm back." He says, No, I don't think you understand. Expelled. Not suspended, not vacation, expelled. You're not welcome in the yeshiva. The boy turns to the Rebbe, and he says, "You can't do that. You can't throw me out. You have to ask a Rav. You have to get a psak. You can't just decide to throw me out because it's too much trouble to have me." Anyway, the Rebbe can't believe he's arguing with this kid. Now there's all the other kids are around him, and everyone's getting swept into it. They're arguing back and forth. The Rebbe says, "You know something? I'm going to go to the Rav. I'll explain what this is. He's going to side with me anyway." And this little unbelievable group starts walking through the streets of this village, okay, in Europe, and everyone's following. All the kids are following, and the Rebbe and the guy, and they're still arguing, and they're coming. And I just imagine, by the way, I'm a rabbi, and I'm imagining the rabbi is looking out the window, and he sees the Rebbe, and he sees the biggest troublemaking kid in town, and he sees all the kids surrounding them, and he's thinking to himself what every rabbi is thinking in that moment. Why did I become a rabbi? If you think this every once in a while, don't worry, that's healthy. If you think it every day, get another job. Anyway, they walk in the office, and the rabbi says, what can I do for you? And the rabbi explains, and the kid is saying, well, I felt bad, and I'm a troublemaker, but I didn't mean to do it, and the Rebbe's like, he put a goat in the Aron Kodesh with the Sifrei Torah. Who knows what's going on in there? From the smell, I have some guesses. How can we have someone who disrespects the Torah? And the Rav is nodding, and the boy sees, Ki kalta alav hara'a met hamelech. This is not going his way. So he mutters under his breath, like only troublemaking kids do. He mutters under his breath. As the rabbi starts, he says, well, did you ask them? And the Rav says, ask them, ask who? I'm the Rav. And the boy with tears in his eyes, he says, did you ask my children? Did you ask my grandchildren? I'm a troublemaker. But do my kids not deserve that their father should have had a Jewish education? Do my grandkids not deserve to marry other Jews? Because I did this, because I made this mistake? Did you ask them before you give your ruling? And the Rav is shook. And he tells the Rebbe, maybe give him 2 more weeks. See if he turns it around. I can bet those messages are, is he done yet? Is he almost finished? I'm in the car. I have the entire lunch buffet. Let's make a clean getaway. That was that level of intensity, notification level. It's unbelievable. Yossi, go stop them. We all need to eat. By the way, every instinct I have as a speaker is like, don't interrupt your narrative, don't interrupt your narrative, don't interrupt your narrative. And then the troublemaking kid that would have put a goat in the Aron Kodesh is like, go for it. The Rav says, give him 2 more weeks. Most of that cheder was wiped out in the war. And this man, whose children became Bnei Torah, whose grandchildren studied in yeshivot, became Rabbanim and Rabbeim themselves, who was given that chance because he was able to express clearly to the Rav, what about my kids? What about my grandkids? Should they suffer for my mistakes? When you see a Jewish person in front of you, you have an opportunity to invite him for a Shabbat meal. You have an opportunity to sign up for a one-on-one learning. You have an opportunity to introduce them or mentor them on a professional level. You're not sitting with one person. You're sitting with all future generations of that child. Esther also was not a kiruv professional. Nobody else was like Daniel, but on that day, we all became Daniels. My friends, you cannot leave this building. We have locked the doors. Until you say, Hineni. I'm here. I got it. Sign me up. If not for 1, for 2. If not for 2, for 3. But it cannot be. Don't think that you will be able to escape because you grew up in a frum house. You're in the Bet HaMelech. Because maybe God put you in the Bet HaMelech, not for you, but for him and all of his children. God doesn't give you strength, kokot, personality, money, education. He loans them to you for all of Am Yisrael. So this thing, if you try and keep it for yourself, atu betavich tovedu, get out there. Im lo achshav ematai, in a time of Esther Panim. We are all Esthers. We are all Daniels. We are all Avram Avinus. And even if we have nothing to say to them, come to my house. Achar ta'avoru. My friends, they've done all of the work. All you have to say is, I'm in. Repeat after me. I'm in. That was the worst ever. Repeat after me. I want 25% off this weekend. I just want to gauge. One more time. I'm in. That's Avram Avinu. Hineni. That's Moshe Rabbeinu. Hineni. And today, that's every single one of us. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. Lunch is being served outside. Remember to please return both keys. Both keys. We can't blame it on the roommate or the spouse. Please bring both keys to the front desk. Thank you so much for joining us.
When you give back the keys, they are going to scan them. Everybody got applause, but nobody got a standing ovation this weekend. You got to give a standing ovation for Rabbi Yossi Friedman. Stand up, give it up for Rabbi Yossi Friedman. He deserves a standing ovation. Please enjoy your lunch. Remember to give back the keys. Thank you.